Welcome back to Infidelity Tales Lab. We're incredibly grateful for your support. Before we begin today's tale, tell us, which city or country are you joining us from? We love connecting with our global audience. Now, let's dive into today's story. Jonathan Jack Steele adjusted his Brioni suit's cuff as he watched his wife Melanie apply the finishing touches to her makeup through the bathroom mirror's reflection. At 42, he carried himself with the disciplined posture of his military days, now masked beneath the polished veneer of a successful hedge fund manager. Each detail of their evening had been meticulously planned, much like every other aspect of his life. "The Cartier looks perfect on you," he commented, noting the anniversary gift he'd given her that morning, a bracelet that cost more than most people's annual salary. The way Melanie's fingers traced the diamonds reminded him of how she'd always appreciated the finer things in life. "Thomas outdid himself, getting us the reservation at Le Bernardin," Melanie responded, her voice carrying a hint of something Jack couldn't quite place. "He's always been so thoughtful about our special occasions." Jack's phone buzzed with a text from Peter Walsh, his head of security and former Special Forces teammate. "Position secured. All clear." The message brought a slight smile to Jack's face. Old habits died hard, and having Peter watch their backs had become second nature since their military days. Ready to celebrate 15 years, beautifuls? Jack extended his hand to Melanie, who took it with practiced grace. Her new Valentino dress hugged her figure perfectly, another detail that hadn't escaped his notice. The drive to Le Bernardin was filled with Melanie's animated chatter about their children. "Mom and Dad are spoiling Ryan and Isabella rotten this weekend," she laughed. "Ryan's probably convinced Grandpa to let him stay up playing video games, and Isabella's no doubt raiding Grandma's craft supplies." Jack listened, cataloging each detail of her behavior. Their 13-year-old son and 10-year-old daughter were indeed having a wonderful time with their grandparents. He confirmed it himself during his afternoon call. "They deserve some grandparent time, and we deserve this." Le Bernardin's interior exuded understated luxury. Thomas had secured them the best table, and the maitre d' greeted them by name. "Mr. and Mrs. Steele, we're honored to help celebrate your anniversary. Mr. Thomas Steele arranged something special for your evening." From his discreet position at the bar, Peter observed the couple while maintaining a professional distance. His military-trained eyes caught the subtle ways Melanie's hand lingered on her phone between courses, the slight distraction in her expression when Jack spoke about their future plans. To 15 years, Jack raised his glass of crude champagne. "And to family, the foundation of everything we've built." Melanie's smile seemed to brighten. "To family," she echoed, taking a sip. "And to sharing everything we have." The evening progressed through courses of exquisite French cuisine. Jack maintained his usual commanding presence, engaging in discussions about their children's achievements, the success of his latest fund, and Melanie's thriving interior design business. "Remember our first date?" Melanie asked between bites of perfectly seared foie gras. "You were so intense, so focused. I knew right then you'd build something extraordinary." "We built it together," Jack corrected her, his dark eyes holding her gaze. "Everything I've accomplished has been for our family." Peter's phone vibrated with an alert from the security system Jack had recently upgraded. Motion detected in the master bedroom, exactly as expected. He sent a quick text confirming the recording systems were functioning properly. As they finished their dessert, a sophisticated play on chocolate and citrus, Jack noticed Melanie's slight tremor as she reached for her water glass. To anyone else, it would have been imperceptible, but Jack had built his success on noticing details others missed. "Shall we head home?" he suggested, his tone carrying the same authority that had guided his military unit and now commanded his business empire. "I have another surprise waiting." The ride home was quieter than their journey to the restaurant. Melanie's hand found Jack's, her grip slightly tighter than usual. He squeezed back, maintaining his role in their carefully choreographed evening. Their home, a magnificent property that spoke of old money and new success, welcomed them with warm lighting and the subtle scent of Melanie's preferred Jo Malone candles. Jack helped her out of her coat, his movements deliberate and controlled. "Tonight was perfect," Melanie said, her voice carrying that same odd note he detected earlier. "You've always known how to make me feel special. You deserve nothing less." Jack replied, watching as she moved toward their bedroom. "I'll join you in a moment. Just need to check on something in my study." In his study, Jack accessed the security feed on his private server. The camera in their bedroom, installed after Peter had reported unusual patterns in Melanie's behavior, was recording perfectly. Everything was in position. Peter's text confirmed what Jack already knew. All systems go. Recording active. Jack loosened his tie and made his way to their bedroom, where Melanie waited in their king-size bed. The subtle scent of her favorite perfume mixed with something else, nervousness, perhaps? He'd smelled that combination before in targets who thought they had the upper hand. "Join me." Melanie patted the space beside her. "I've been thinking about something important we need to discuss." Jack settled onto the bed, maintaining the perfect image of a husband ready to hear his wife's thoughts. His military training had taught him the value of letting targets reveal themselves in their own time. 15 years is a long time, Melanie began, her voice steady despite the slight tremor in her hands. "Long enough to know what you really want in life." Jack watched her, his expression neutral but attentive. Years of high-stakes negotiations had perfected his poker face. "And what is it you want, Melanie?" She turned to face him fully, her expression carrying an unsettling confidence. "Honey, I need to confess something." The words came out clear and practiced. "Thomas and I have been dating for the last 3 years. We're madly in love." The bedroom silence deepened as Jack processed her words. The camera hidden in their elaborate light fixture captured every moment, every nuance of Melanie's expression as she continued. "We want to make this work, Jack. We can share everything, the house, the kids. Thomas understands me in ways you never could. We've talked about this extensively, planned how we could all live together, make it work as a family." Jack's face remained impassive as Melanie detailed their relationship, their secret meetings, their vision of a future that included him as some sort of sophisticated cuckold. His military training kicked in automatically, assess the threat, gather intelligence, plan the response. "We don't want to hurt you," Melanie continued, mistaking his silence for shock. "Thomas and I believe we can make this arrangement work. The children already adore him. You've seen how close they've grown. We could be happy, all of us, together." Without a word, Jack stood from the bed. His movements were deliberate, controlled, as he retrieved his phone from his pocket. Melanie's voice followed him as he moved toward the door. "Aren't you going to say anything?" The confusion in her voice mixed with an undercurrent of arrogance. "Jack, we need to discuss this like adults." He paused at the doorway, his broad shoulders straight, his posture reminiscent of his commanding officer days. But he didn't turn around, didn't give her the satisfaction of seeing his expression. The camera would catch everything. Her confession, her arrogance, her assumption that she could destroy their family and still maintain control. As he closed the bedroom door behind him, Jack's phone buzzed with another message from Peter. "Got it all. Clean audio and video." The message included a link to the secured recording, already backing up to multiple secure servers. Jack made his way to his study, his steps measured and purposeful. The house's silence wrapped around him like an old friend as he began composing messages to key members of his team. Claire Bennett would need to be briefed first thing in the morning. Detective Maxwell would want to review the recording immediately. In the bedroom, Melanie sat alone, her confidence beginning to crack as she realized her carefully scripted confession hadn't gone according to plan. She reached for her phone, presumably to contact Thomas, unaware that every message, every call was now being monitored and recorded. Jack settled into his study chair, his expression finally allowing itself to shift from neutral to determined. He'd built his empire through careful planning and ruthless execution. Now, those same skills would be turned toward a different kind of battle, one that would leave no survivors among those who had betrayed him. Melanie lay awake in their king-size bed, her confidence from earlier eroding with each passing minute. The confession she'd practiced so many times with Thomas had gone nothing like they'd planned. Jack's silence, his complete lack of reaction, had thrown her off balance in a way she hadn't anticipated. She reached for her phone, fingers trembling slightly as she typed a message to Thomas. He didn't react at all, just got up and left. "What should I do?" The response came quickly. "Stay calm. Remember the plan. His reaction proves he's unstable. Document everything. In his downtown office, Jack sat behind his imposing desk, multiple screens displaying various security feeds and data streams. Peter Walsh entered without knocking, carrying 2 cups of coffee and a thick manila folder. The recording is crystal clear, Peter reported, placing 1 coffee in front of Jack. Audio picked up everything, including her phone conversation with Thomas after you left. They're scrambling. Jack took a sip of the coffee. Black, no sugar, just as he'd had it in their military days. Show me what else you found. Peter opened the folder, spreading photographs and documents across the desk. You were right about the patterns. Thomas has been systematically accessing your personal accounts, gathering information. The login traces go back months. He's been careful, but not careful enough. Timeline? Jack's voice carried the same commanding tone that had once guided their unit through hostile territory. Based on the digital trail, they've been planning this for at least 6 months. But the Foundation accounts show irregularities going back further. Thomas has been embezzling small amounts, testing the waters. Melanie's interior design business shows corresponding deposits. They've been laundering the money through her legitimate contracts. Jack's phone lit up with a notification, Claire Bennett requesting a secure video call. He accepted, and his personal attorney's face appeared on one of the screens. I've reviewed the preliminary evidence, Claire began, her expression grim. They've been careful in some areas but sloppy in others. The Foundation embezzlement is the cleanest angle for immediate action. Melanie's business records show clear patterns of money laundering. What about the children? Jack's voice carried a dangerous edge. Claire shuffled through some papers off-screen. The documentation you've been gathering about their attempts to alienate the children will be crucial. The text messages between Melanie and Thomas discussing plans to transition the children's affections are particularly damning. Peter pulled up another document on his tablet. The anniversary dinner wasn't just their idea. They had plans to record your reaction to Melanie's confession. Use it as evidence of mental instability. Thomas has been researching ways to have you declared incompetent. Jack's laugh held no humor. Their mistake was thinking they were the only ones making recordings tonight. Claire's voice carried a note of professional satisfaction. The bedroom recording is admissible, single-party consent state, and it's your private residence. Combined with the financial evidence, we have a strong case for both criminal charges and the divorce proceedings. Have you accessed Thomas's private server? Jack asked Peter, his mind already moving to the next phase of his counter-strategy. Peter nodded, pulling up another file. He's been documenting everything, probably thinking it would help their case. Instead, he's given us a roadmap of their entire conspiracy. Dates, times, locations of meetings. Plans for taking control of your company. Even discussions about the children's trust funds. Sir, Peter hesitated, then continued, there's something else. In their messages, they've discussed contingency plans if you proved difficult to control. Some of the language is concerning. Jack's expression hardened. Spell it out. They've researched various medications known to cause confusion and memory issues. There are messages about making your health issues appear natural. Claire's intake of breath was audible over the video call. That changes things considerably. We need to move quickly on the protective orders. Already in motion, Jack responded, pulling up another document on his screen. I've had the house's water supply tested weekly for the past month. Food delivery services changed. Personal chef vetted again. No chances. Peter placed another document on the desk, medical records. Your regular blood tests have been clean. If they were planning to start drugging you, they hadn't begun yet. The anniversary dinner, Jack mused, his voice cold. They probably planned to start then. Use my reaction to the confession as a baseline for your deteriorating mental state. Claire was typing rapidly off-screen. This adds another layer to the criminal charges. Conspiracy to commit assault, possibly attempted murder, depending on what substances they were considering. What's our timeline? Peter asked, his military training evident in his focused expression. Jack stood, moving to the window, overlooking the city. His reflection showed the same controlled expression he'd worn during combat operations. They'll expect me to be emotional, irrational. To confront Thomas, make scenes at the office. We'll let them think their plan is working. And the children? Claire asked. Ryan and Isabella stay with my parents until we're ready to move. Peter's team has already increased security at their school and my parents' house. Jack turned back to face the screens. No one touches my children. Peter's phone buzzed with an alert from the house security system. Melanie's leaving the house. GPS tracker shows she's heading toward Thomas's apartment. Perfect. Jack's smile was predatory. Let them think they're in control. Every meeting, every call, every message they exchange now will just add to our evidence. Claire began organizing her notes. I'll have the preliminary divorce papers ready by morning. The federal authorities are already interested in the foundation embezzlement. One call from me, and that investigation goes hot. Not yet, Jack commanded. Let them dig themselves deeper. Every action they take thinking I'm oblivious is another nail in their coffin. Peter pulled up the security feed from Thomas's apartment building on his tablet. Melanie just arrived. Want audio from their meeting? Jack nodded, his expression unchanging as his wife's voice filled the room, panic evident as she described his reaction to her confession. Thomas's attempts to calm her, their rushed discussion of next steps, every word another piece of evidence. Their mistake, Jack said quietly, his voice carrying the same tone his men had learned to fear during their military days, was thinking they could take what's mine. By the time we're done, they'll have nothing left. The night stretched on as Jack and his team continued building their case, each piece of evidence carefully documented and secured. In Thomas's apartment, Melanie and Thomas plotted, unaware that their every word was being recorded, their every action monitored. The perfect life they thought they were destroying was already being reformed into something else, a weapon that would ultimately destroy them instead. Dawn painted the city in shades of possibility as Jack maintained his position in his downtown office. The night had been productive. Each piece of evidence carefully cataloged, each potential move mapped out with military precision. Peter's arrival with fresh coffee and an updated file marked the transition from night to morning. You were right about the patterns, Peter said, laying out new documents across the desk. Thomas hasn't just been accessing your personal accounts. He's been building a comprehensive database of your client information, company structures, everything needed to take over your operation. Jack reviewed the documents with the same intensity he'd once used to study enemy positions. Show me the money trail. Peter pulled up a series of financial records on the main screen. The foundation embezzlement was just the beginning. Thomas has been setting up shadow companies, mirror accounts, each one carefully structured to look legitimate at first glance. Claire Bennett's face appeared on another screen, her early morning appearance as professional as ever. The financial web they've created is impressive but sloppy in key areas. Thomas used his personal devices to access several of the accounts. Amateur mistake. He always did get careless when he thought he was winning, Jack noted, his voice carrying a hint of cold amusement. What about Melanie's role? Peter pulled up another set of documents. She's been more involved than we initially thought. Her interior design business isn't just laundering money, it's been gathering intelligence. Each high-profile client project gave her access to potential targets for their expanded operation. The timing makes sense now, Claire interjected from the video call. Melanie's sudden interest in taking on specific high-net-worth clients. She wasn't just building her business. She was building their future client list. Jack studied the patterns in the data before him. How many of my clients has she approached? Peter pulled up a spreadsheet. 23 in the last 6 months. All major accounts. She's been documenting their personal preferences, family details, even security vulnerabilities she noticed while working in their homes. Classic intelligence gathering, Jack noted, his military experience recognizing the methodology. She used her legitimate business access to create dossiers on potential targets. Claire's typing could be heard over the video call. The level of premeditation strengthens our case. This isn't just about your marriage. They were planning to systematically dismantle everything you've built. Show me their communication patterns, Jack commanded, turning to another screen. Peter brought up a complex network diagram. They've been careful about direct communication, but not careful enough. Multiple burner phones, encrypted messaging apps, but they got sloppy with their personal devices, especially after hours. The evidence painted a damning picture. Late-night messages between Melanie and Thomas discussing not just their affair, but their plans for Jack's company. Detailed strategies for convincing clients to transfer their accounts once Jack was indisposed. What's their timeline? Jack asked, his voice maintaining its controlled edge. Claire referenced another document. Based on the evidence, they plan to move within the next month. Thomas has already prepared documentation claiming you've been showing signs of mental instability. Melanie's been keeping a detailed diary of your supposed erratic behavior. Perfect. Jack's smile held no warmth. They've done half our work for us. Those fabricated records will make excellent evidence of conspiracy. Peter's tablet chimed with a new alert. Melanie just left Thomas's apartment. GPS shows she's heading to her office. Track her movements, Jack ordered. I want to know every person she contacts today. Claire shuffled some papers off screen. I've prepared emergency motions for when we're ready to move. We can freeze the foundation accounts, their personal assets, everything. Just give the word. Not yet. Jack's voice carried the same tone he'd used when planning complex military operations. Let them think they're still in control. Every move they make thinking they're free strengthens our position. Peter pulled up another document. There's something else you should see. Thomas has been meeting with competitors. 3 meetings in the past week with Harrison Global Partners. Jack's expression darkened. Harrison's been trying to acquire our Asian operations for years. Thomas is offering them a hostile takeover opportunity. The meetings were recorded, Peter confirmed, bringing up the audio files. Thomas offered them your client list, operational details, everything they'd need to absorb your company once you were out of the picture. Claire's sharp intake of breath was audible. That moves this beyond civil courts. Industrial espionage, conspiracy to commit securities fraud. We're looking at serious federal charges. Good. Jack's response was immediate. The harder they fall, the better. Peter brought up another screen showing real-time surveillance feeds. One showed Melanie arriving at her office. Another displayed Thomas entering the Foundation's building. Both of them going about their day, unaware that their every move was being documented. Your next meeting with the board is scheduled for Friday, Claire reminded him. Thomas will expect you to be there. Jack nodded, his mind already mapping out the next phases of his strategy. I'll give him exactly what he expects, a distracted, unstable older brother struggling with personal issues. Let him think his plan is working. What about the children? Peter asked, his concern evident. They stay with my parents until this is finished. Jack's tone left no room for discussion. Double the security detail. No one gets within 100 yards without complete verification. Claire added another note to her growing file. I've documented every instance where they discussed using the children against you. The family court judge will be particularly interested in their plans to alienate them from you. Jack stood, moving to the window overlooking his empire. The empire his brother and wife thought they could steal. They thought they could take everything I've built. By the time we're done, they'll understand exactly who they're dealing with. Peter's phone buzzed with another alert. Melanie's trying to access the main house security system remotely. Let her, Jack commanded. Every attempt just adds to our evidence of premeditation. The morning sun now fully illuminated the city, but in Jack's office, plans continued to take shape in the artificial light of multiple screens. Each piece of evidence, each recorded conversation, each digital footprint his wife and brother left behind, all of it ammunition in the war they didn't yet know they were fighting. Sir, Peter said, his voice carrying the same respect it had during their military days. We're ready to move whenever you give the word. Jack turned from the window, his expression set in stone. Not yet. Let them enjoy their illusion of victory. When we move, it will be absolute. No warnings, no second chances, no mercy. The monitors continued to track Melanie and Thomas's movements, recording their conversations, documenting their betrayal. In his office, surrounded by the evidence of their treachery, Jack Steele prepared for war. Not the kind he'd fought in distant lands, but one just as brutal. A war for everything he'd built, everything he'd protected, everything they thought they could take from him. The perfect life they thought they were destroying would become the perfect weapon for their destruction. Act 1 was coming to a close, but the real show was just beginning. Amanda Hayes gripped her coffee cup tightly as she sat across from Peter Walsh in a private room at the St. Regis Hotel. Her designer outfit and perfect manicure couldn't hide the tension in her shoulders as she recounted her history with Thomas Steele. "I should have come forward sooner," she said, her voice steady despite her obvious discomfort. "2 years ago, I found messages on Thomas's phone. He and Melanie, they weren't just having an affair. They were planning something bigger." Peter maintained his professional demeanor, recording device discreetly capturing every word. "Tell me about the threats." Amanda's laugh held no humor. "They were thorough. First, they planted evidence suggesting I'd stolen designs from clients. Then came the photos, edited but convincing. They made it clear, if I talked, my career would be over." "Why come forward now?" Peter asked, though he already knew the answer. His careful orchestration had led to this moment. "Because I saw the Foundation's latest project listings. The same pattern they used to threaten me. They're doing it again. And this time, they're targeting Jack." Amanda pulled out her phone, showing Peter a series of emails. "They're planning to declare him mentally incompetent. Thomas has been meeting with psychiatric experts, building a case." In his downtown office, Detective Robert Maxwell reviewed the security footage from Le Bernardin. The anniversary dinner had been recorded from multiple angles, not by Jack's team, but by Thomas's hired professionals. They wanted to capture his reaction to the confession, Maxwell explained to Jack via secure video call. "Every gesture, every expression. They planned to use it as evidence of your instability." Jack's response was clinical. "Show me what else you found." Maxwell shared his screen, displaying a series of documents. "Thomas has been consulting with Dr. Edward Harris, a psychiatric expert known for testifying in competency cases. He's been building a profile, documenting supposed signs of paranoia and unstable behavior. Signs that don't exist," Jack noted, his voice carrying a dangerous edge. "They were planning to create them," Maxwell corrected. "The recordings, the staged incidents, even planted evidence of erratic business decisions. They wanted to build a case for temporary conservatorship." The detective pulled up another file. "But here's where it gets interesting. I found connections between Dr. Harris and 3 other cases. All wealthy business owners. All declared temporarily incompetent. All losing control of their companies under suspicious circumstances." Jack's expression remained neutral, but his eyes hardened. "A pattern, a racket," Maxwell confirmed. "Dr. Harris has been working with a network of lawyers and business associates. They target successful companies, manufacture mental health crises, and take control during the temporary conservatorship. By the time the owners clear their names, the companies have been stripped and sold off." The revelation was interrupted by an urgent message from Ms. Diana Rivers, Isabella's art teacher. The message included photos of Isabella's recent artwork, disturbing pieces that showed a family of 4, with Thomas clearly depicted in Jack's place. "Isabella's been different lately," Ms. Rivers explained during their hasty meeting in her classroom. "More withdrawn, confused about family roles. Last week, she painted this." She gestured to a family portrait where Thomas stood in the father's position, Jack notably absent. "How long has this been happening?" Jack's question carried carefully controlled anger. Ms. Rivers pulled out a portfolio of Isabella's work. "The changes started about 6 months ago. At first, it was subtle, Thomas appearing in family scenes. Then he started replacing you entirely." She pointed to specific details in the paintings. "Look at the positioning, the size relationships. Classic indicators of psychological manipulation. They've been grooming her," Jack stated, his military training keeping his rage in check. "Not just Isabella," Ms. Rivers added, showing more artwork. "Ryan's been affected too, though he shows it differently. His art has become more aggressive, especially when depicting father figures." Peter's team had already compiled a comprehensive report on Thomas and Melanie's interactions with the children. Private meetings, subtle suggestions, carefully planted ideas about Jack's condition. They'd been methodically preparing the children for what they called the transition. "They used my children's art classes as psychological warfare." Jack's voice was deadly calm as he reviewed the evidence with his team. Added to the list, the evidence mounted throughout the day. Amanda Hayes provided detailed accounts of Thomas and Melanie's previous manipulation tactics. Detective Maxwell uncovered the broader conspiracy involving Dr. Harris. Ms. Rivers documented the psychological impact on the children. Each revelation added another layer to Jack's counteroffensive. His enemies had spent months gathering pawns, not realizing they were gathering evidence for their own destruction. Richard Martinez, Jack's IT director, worked through multiple screens of encrypted data in the secure server room. The foundation embezzlement was clever, he reported to Jack and Peter. They used legitimate charitable projects as cover, skimming percentages that wouldn't raise red flags individually. "Show me the pattern," Jack commanded. Martinez displayed a complex network of transactions. Small amounts at first, testing the system. Then larger transfers, always coordinated with actual foundation projects. Melanie's design business provided the perfect laundering operation. Inflated invoices, phantom services, consulting fees that never existed. But that wasn't their endgame, Peter added, pulling up another set of data. They've been systematically copying client information. Account details, investment preferences, personal information. Everything needed to steal your entire client base. Jack studied the data streams with cold efficiency. Timeline? They accelerated 6 months ago, Martinez explained. That's when Thomas began accessing the secure client databases. He has a complete copy of your operations architecture. Claire Bennett's voice joined through the secure line. The client data theft elevates this significantly. We're looking at multiple federal violations, international banking laws. "Show me Melanie's role," Jack interrupted, focused on understanding the full scope of the betrayal. Martinez brought up a new screen showing Melanie's private email server. "She's been documenting everything about you. Daily routines, business decisions, private conversations, all carefully edited to paint a picture of increasing instability." Peter displayed some of Melanie's notes. March 15th. Jack seemed confused about basic company figures during board meeting. April 3rd. Found Jack in his study at 3 a.m., claiming to hear intruders. All fabricated, all designed to support their narrative. The timestamps are interesting, Martinez noted. She wrote these observations weeks or months before the alleged incidents. They were creating a paper trail in advance. Claire's voice carried professional anger. They planned to use these fake documents to support the competency challenge. Combined with Dr. Harris's evaluation and the manipulated recordings, they thought they had an airtight case. But it gets worse, Peter added, pulling up another file. We found encrypted emails discussing offshore accounts and plans for the children. They weren't just planning to take control. They were planning to disappear with everything. Martinez displayed a series of travel documents and property records. Thomas has been setting up infrastructure in countries without extradition treaties. Multiple properties, new identities, everything needed to vanish with the assets and the children. The implications about the children's trust funds are particularly disturbing, Claire added. They've been researching ways to access them during the proposed conservatorship. The amounts they plan to transfer are staggering. Jack absorbed each piece of information with deadly calm. "Show me their communication about the children." Martinez brought up a series of encrypted messages between Melanie and Thomas. Their casual discussion of plans to relocate the children once Jack was taken care of revealed the true depth of their moral bankruptcy. They discussed it like a business transaction, Peter noted with disgust. Moving assets, including your children, to offshore locations. They even had contingency plans if you became problematic. Claire's typing could be heard over the secure line. The premeditation here is extraordinary. They weren't just planning to steal your company. They were planning to erase you entirely. The foundation embezzlement alone is enough for federal charges, Martinez added. But when you add the international financial crimes, the planned kidnapping, the conspiracy to commit fraud, this level of planning suggests more players. Jack interrupted, his tactical mind assembling the pieces. "Show me their external contacts." Martinez pulled up another data set. Thomas has been meeting with competitor firms, particularly Harrison Global Partners. He's been offering them inside information, client lists, everything they'd need for a hostile takeover once you were out of the picture. The regulatory implications are severe, Claire noted. Securities fraud, insider trading, conspiracy across international borders. The SEC will be particularly interested in the timing of certain trades Thomas executed. Peter displayed surveillance photos showing Thomas meeting with various business figures. He's been promising your client base to multiple parties, collecting advance payments for post-takeover guarantees. Classic long con. Detective Maxwell's voice joined the secure call. Promise everyone everything. Take their money up front, plan to be gone before they realize they've been played. Jack studied each piece of evidence with the same intensity he'd once used to analyze enemy positions. They thought they could take everything. Show me their weaknesses. Martinez brought up personal financial records. Despite the elaborate planning, they got sloppy with their own finances. Thomas has been spending advance payments from potential conspirators, creating a paper trail we can use. Melanie's been less careful too, Peter added. Her recent purchases, property, art, jewelry, all paid for with funds that can be traced back to the Foundation embezzlement. Their arrogance made them careless, Claire observed. They were so focused on the big picture, they left dozens of prosecutable offenses in their wake. Jack stood, his presence commanding the room even through video feeds. They wanted to play a game. His voice carried deadly certainty. Let's show them how it's done. Jack's private conference room had become a war room, screens displaying various surveillance feeds and data streams as he coordinated with his team. Claire Bennett's legal strategy was taking shape with military precision. The structure is in place, Claire reported, sharing documents on the main screen. We've transferred majority control of the company to a trust controlled by Peter and other verified loyalists. The mechanism is ironclad. Even if they somehow succeeded with the competency challenge, they couldn't touch the core assets. The children's trust funds? Jack's question carried the weight of parental protection. Secured, Claire confirmed. We've implemented multiple layers of protection. Even with the conservatorship, they couldn't access a penny without unanimous approval from a board of trustees. All people we trust implicitly. Peter added another layer to the strategy. Amanda Hayes has agreed to help. She'll approach Thomas with evidence of their plan. Make him think she's discovered something that could expose them. How do we know she won't warn them instead? Claire asked, ever the pragmatist. Because I've given her something more valuable than anything they could offer, Jack responded. Legitimacy. The Foundation's new leadership position, once this is finished. Detective Maxwell joined the video call. The federal case around the Foundation embezzlement is ready to move. We've tracked every dollar, documented every transaction. They're looking at serious time just for that alone. Ms. Rivers has been documenting everything about the children, Peter reported. Every concerning interaction, every sign of manipulation. She's building a record that will be crucial for the custody proceedings. Jack studied the surveillance feed, showing Melanie at her design office, unaware that her carefully constructed world was about to implode. Show me the tactical timeline. Peter displayed a detailed flowchart. Amanda makes contact with Thomas tomorrow. She'll present evidence that seems damaging, but is actually controlled. Make him think he needs to accelerate their plans. Meanwhile, Claire added, we'll begin freezing key accounts through regulatory compliance reviews. Nothing that would raise alarms, but enough to frustrate their liquidity. Maxwell's team will start interviewing Foundation employees, Peter continued. Again, nothing unusual, standard audit procedures. But it will make them nervous. Jack's expression remained impassive as he reviewed each element of the plan. And the children? Secure at your parents' estate, Peter confirmed. The security team has been doubled. No one gets near them without triple verification. Martinez's voice came through the speakers. We've identified all their digital assets, their escape routes, their contingency plans. Every path they might take is monitored. Ms. Rivers will continue documenting everything related to the children, Claire added. Every piece of artwork, every concerning conversation. We're building an unassailable record of their psychological manipulation attempts. Jack stood, his presence filling the room with controlled menace. They wanted to play a game, he stated, his voice carrying the same tone that had once commanded elite military units. They chose the field, set their pieces, thought they had every angle covered. But they didn't count on you seeing it coming, Peter observed. No, Jack agreed, his smile devoid of warmth. They didn't count on a lot of things. Execute the plan. No warnings, no mercy, no escape. The screens continued displaying their target's movements. Thomas at his office, Melanie with a client, both of them unaware that their elaborate game was about to become their own trap. In his war room, surrounded by the evidence of their betrayal and the tools of their destruction, Jack Steele prepared for the final phase. They had tried to use his children as pawns in their game. Now they would learn the true meaning of ruthless gameplay. The pieces were in place, the trap was set, and Act 2 was coming to a close. But for Thomas and Melanie, the real nightmare was just beginning. The 2 weeks following Melanie's confession had been a masterclass in strategic deception. Jack allowed his appearance to become slightly disheveled, his responses in meetings occasionally distracted. He'd forgotten important client meetings and appeared to struggle with basic company figures. Thomas watched his brother's apparent descent with poorly concealed satisfaction. Jack's been under so much stress lately, he commented to board members, his concern perfectly feigned. I'm worried about his ability to handle day-to-day operations. The company's annual charity gala provided the perfect stage for their endgame. The grand ballroom of the Ritz-Carlton buzzed with New York's financial elite, unaware they were about to witness the destruction of 2 people who dared to betray the wrong man. Peter's security team maintained discreet positions throughout the venue. Detective Maxwell coordinated with federal agents staged in adjoining rooms. Claire Bennett sat among the guests, a tablet discreetly displaying real-time updates from their surveillance network. Melanie worked the room in an expensive new dress, playing her role as the concerned wife. Jack's been so different lately, she confided to key clients. We're all very worried about him. Thomas stood at the podium, preparing to announce Jack's temporary step back from the company. His speech notes detailed concerns about Jack's mental health, the need for immediate intervention, and his own willingness to assume control during this difficult transition. Ready for this? Peter's voice came through Jack's discreet earpiece. Execute as planned, Jack responded, his voice carrying the same authority it had in combat zones. The lights dimmed slightly as Thomas approached the microphone. Good evening, everyone. We're gathered here not just to support our foundation's important work, but to address some concerning developments. Jack's movement toward the stage carried the same deliberate purpose he'd shown in military operations. Thomas faltered slightly as Jack took position beside him. Please allow me. Jack's voice filled the room with commanded authority. The microphone picked up Thomas's surprised inhale as Jack took control of the podium. I'd like to thank my wife and brother for their dedication, Jack began, his tone measured and precise. They've worked so hard to plan this evening, almost as hard as they've worked to steal my company, alienate my children, and have me committed. The room fell silent. Melanie's champagne glass froze halfway to her lips. For those wondering about my supposed mental instability, Jack continued, allow me to present some interesting financial records. The massive screens behind him came to life, displaying detailed evidence of the foundation embezzlement. My brother Thomas has been systematically stealing from our charitable foundation, using my wife's interior design business to launder the money. Thomas took a step toward the podium, but Peter's security team had already moved into position, blocking his path. But theft wasn't enough. Jack's voice carried throughout the now silent ballroom. They needed control of everything. My company, my children's trust funds, my entire life. The screens displayed more evidence. Emails, bank transfers, surveillance footage. Each piece carefully selected to demonstrate the depth of their betrayal. They planned to have me declared mentally incompetent, Jack explained to the stunned audience. My wife has been fabricating evidence of instability, while my brother consulted with experts about conservatorship. Melanie made a move toward the exit, only to find her path blocked by federal agents. Her perfectly composed facade cracked as she realized the magnitude of their failure. Their plan was comprehensive, Jack continued, his voice carrying the same cold efficiency he'd once used to command military operations. They would have me committed, take control of my company, and disappear with my children to a non-extradition country. Thomas attempted to reach for his phone, but Peter's team had already disabled all communications in the room. Unfortunately for them, Jack's smile held no warmth. I learned long ago to watch for enemies hiding in plain sight. Federal agents are here today with arrest warrants for multiple charges: embezzlement, conspiracy, attempted kidnapping, securities fraud. The screens displayed document after document, each piece of evidence more damning than the last. The audience watched in stunned silence as Jack methodically destroyed the people who had tried to destroy him. "I considered handling this privately," Jack admitted, his voice carrying throughout the room. "But they chose to make this public. They plan to announce my mental incompetence tonight, to humiliate me in front of my peers. Instead, they'll experience what real humiliation feels like." Federal agents moved through the crowd with practiced efficiency. Detective Maxwell personally approached Thomas, handcuffs ready. "Ladies and gentlemen," Jack addressed the shocked crowd, "I apologize for the dramatic evening. Rest assured, your charitable donations are safe. The foundation will continue its work under new leadership." Ms. Amanda Hayes, who helped expose this conspiracy despite threats to her own career. Amanda stood from her seat, her expression a mixture of vindication and satisfaction as she watched Thomas being handcuffed. "As for the company," Jack continued, "it remains secure and stable. Unlike some people in this room, I believe in protecting what's mine." The screens displayed one final piece of evidence: the security footage from their bedroom on the night of Melanie's confession. Her arrogant revelation, her casual destruction of their family, all captured in perfect clarity. "I believe in justice." Jack's voice carried absolute authority. "And tonight, justice will be served." As federal agents led Melanie and Thomas away in handcuffs, Jack remained at the podium, his posture straight, his expression unyielding. He had given them exactly what they wanted: a public spectacle. But he had changed the ending. The federal courthouse buzzed with activity as Detective Maxwell presented the overwhelming evidence against Melanie and Thomas Steele. Financial records spanning years detailed the systematic theft from the charitable foundation. Surveillance footage showed clandestine meetings with co-conspirators. Encrypted emails revealed plans for international flight with stolen assets and kidnapped children. The foundation embezzlement alone carries a 15-year sentence, Maxwell explained to the grand jury, his presentation methodical and damning. But that was just the beginning of their crimes. Amanda Hayes' testimony proved particularly devastating. She described in detail how Thomas and Melanie had threatened to destroy her career when she discovered their affair, using doctored photos and falsified evidence of theft to ensure her silence. "They showed me the fabricated evidence," Amanda testified, her voice steady. "Photos edited to show me stealing from clients, documents suggesting I'd sold proprietary designs. They made it clear, if I exposed their affair, they would destroy everything I'd built." The prosecution displayed the threatening emails, the doctored photos, each piece adding to the mountain of evidence against the defendants. Thomas's lawyer attempted to paint his client as a victim of circumstance, but the evidence of premeditation was overwhelming. Email trails showed years of planning, systematic theft, and calculated manipulation. "Your Honor," the prosecutor addressed the judge, "the defendants didn't just plan to steal money. They planned to destroy a man's life, kidnap his children, and disappear with his assets. The level of premeditation is staggering." The evidence of their plot to have Jack declared mentally incompetent proved particularly damning. Dr. Edward Harris, the psychiatric expert Thomas had consulted, turned state's evidence when faced with his own criminal exposure. "Mr. Thomas Steele approached me with a proposition," Dr. Harris testified. "He wanted documentation of his brother's supposed mental instability. When I explained that I'd need to examine the patient, he suggested we could create the necessary evidence." Melanie's carefully crafted image crumbled as the prosecution presented her documented attempts to manipulate Jack's children. Ms. Rivers' testimony about Isabella's artwork revealed the psychological warfare they'd waged against innocent children. "The changes in Isabella's artwork were deeply concerning," Ms. Rivers explained, displaying the progression of paintings. "They showed clear signs of psychological manipulation, attempting to replace her father's role in the family structure." Peter Walsh's security team had documented every meeting, every phone call, every attempt to alienate the children from their father. The evidence painted a picture of calculated cruelty that shocked even veteran courtroom observers. The defendants didn't just betray their family, the prosecutor summarized. They attempted to destroy it, piece by piece, for their own gain. Thomas tried to maintain his composure, but his facade cracked when the prosecution played recordings of his meetings with competitor firms. His attempts to sell his brother's client base, to destroy the company from within, revealed the true depth of his betrayal. Melanie's testimony proved to be her final undoing. Attempting to paint herself as a victim of manipulation, she instead revealed the cold calculation behind their plans. "We deserved more," she declared on the stand, her arrogance finally showing through. Jack was too focused on control, on doing everything his way. "We had a better vision for the company, for the family." "A vision that included drugging your husband?" the prosecutor asked, producing evidence of their research into various medications. "A vision that included kidnapping his children?" The attempt to have Jack declared incompetent backfired spectacularly, becoming the strongest evidence of their conspiracy. Every documented observation of Jack's supposed instability was proven false. Each fabricated incident traced back to their meticulous planning. Detective Maxwell ensured every charge stuck, presenting financial records that tracked every stolen dollar, every attempted transfer, every planned escape route. The defendants left no room for doubt, Maxwell testified. Their plans were comprehensive, their intentions clear. They meant to destroy everything Mr. Steele had built and disappear with the proceeds. As the evidence mounted, Thomas's composed demeanor finally shattered. In a desperate attempt to save himself, he turned on Melanie, trying to paint her as the mastermind. She planned everything, he claimed, betraying her as easily as he'd betrayed his brother. "She convinced me Jack was unstable, that we needed to take control to protect the company." Melanie's response was immediate and vicious. "It was his idea to have Jack committed," she countered, their united front dissolving into mutual accusations. "He wanted control of the company. He said Jack was too focused on family to see the real opportunities." The judge watched their deterioration with evident disgust. "In all my years on the bench," he commented, "I've rarely seen such a complete betrayal of family trust." The divorce proceedings moved with unprecedented speed, Jack's evidence leaving no room for negotiation. His documentation of Melanie's conspiracy and planned parental alienation ensured full custody of the children. "The evidence of psychological manipulation is overwhelming," the family court judge declared. The defendants' attempts to alienate the children from their father, to prepare them for their father's planned removal, show a level of calculation that this court finds deeply disturbing. Melanie's attempts to paint herself as a victim collapsed under the weight of evidence. Her own documented plans to relocate the children to non-extradition countries proved particularly damaging. "You didn't just betray your husband," the judge admonished. "You betrayed your children, attempting to manipulate them into accepting their father's planned destruction." This court cannot ignore such calculated cruelty. Jack maintained his commanding presence throughout the proceedings, his testimony precise and devastating. He provided detailed evidence of Melanie's manipulation attempts, her documented lies, her plans to destroy their family for personal gain. Thomas faced additional charges for securities fraud and attempted corporate espionage. His meetings with competitor firms, his attempts to sell confidential client information, each action adding years to his sentence. The defendant's actions show a complete disregard for financial regulations and client confidentiality, the SEC prosecutor declared. He didn't just betray his brother. He betrayed every client who trusted their firm. 1 year later, Jack hosted another charity gala. The foundation, now under Amanda Hayes' leadership, had been transformed into an organization focused on helping victims of financial fraud and family betrayal. "We've turned their betrayal into something positive," Amanda addressed the gathered crowd. "Every dollar they tried to steal now goes to helping other victims rebuild their lives." Ryan and Isabella, supported by intensive therapy with Dr. Sarah Mitchell, showed signs of healing. Their artwork, once used to document their manipulation, now reflected their recovery. "The children are remarkably resilient," Dr. Mitchell reported during a private session with Jack. "They're processing the betrayal in healthy ways, understanding that they weren't responsible for their mother's actions." In separate prison libraries, Melanie and Thomas watched news reports of Jack's continued success. Their requests for appeals were summarily denied. Their letters to the children returned unopened. The evidence was conclusive, their appeals lawyer admitted. Every charge, every conviction was supported by overwhelming proof. There's no legal basis for appeal. The security camera footage from their anniversary night became a case study in law school classes about conspiracy and premeditated fraud. Jack kept a frame from that video in his office. Melanie's arrogant confession captured in perfect clarity. It's a reminder, he explained to Peter during a rare moment of reflection. Not of their betrayal, but of the importance of vigilance. True strength isn't in the attack, but in the calculated response. Isabella's latest painting hung beside the surveillance photo. Unlike her previous works, manipulated by Melanie and Thomas's influence, this one showed the truth. A family of 3, surrounded by the trusted friends who had become family. That's who we really are, Isabella explained to her father, her young voice carrying new wisdom. The people who stay, who protect each other, who tell the truth. Jack's empire hadn't just survived the attempted betrayal, it had grown stronger. Every weakness Thomas and Melanie had tried to exploit had been transformed into a fortress. Every client they had tried to steal now trusted Jack more deeply, impressed by his handling of the crisis. The foundation, under Amanda's leadership, became a powerful force for good, helping other families affected by similar betrayals. The very money Thomas and Melanie had tried to steal now funded programs to prevent others from suffering the same fate. In their separate prison cells, Melanie and Thomas were left with nothing but time to contemplate their failure. They wanted everything Jack had built, his company, his children, his very identity. Instead, they lost everything they had, their betrayal becoming a cautionary tale in financial and legal circles. Jack's response to their betrayal became legendary in New York's financial community, not for its brutality, but for its precision. He hadn't just defeated their conspiracy, he had transformed it into a weapon for positive change. The truth they had tried to manipulate became their undoing. The family they had tried to destroy emerged stronger, bound not by blood but by loyalty, protected not by lies but by truth. Isabella's new painting captured it perfectly. A family strengthened by adversity, surrounded by proven allies, their bond stronger for having been tested. It hung in Jack's office as a testament to real family values, loyalty, truth, and the strength to protect what matters most. Epilogue: a decade of consequences. 10 years had transformed the landscape of the Steele family's world. The high-security women's correctional facility in upstate New York held inmate number 847623, formerly known as Melanie Steele. Her designer clothes had been replaced by standard-issue uniforms, her carefully manicured nails now plain and worn from mandatory labor tasks. 5 more years remained on her sentence, with no possibility of parole. The psychiatric evaluation on her file noted persistent narcissistic tendencies and failure to acknowledge responsibility. Her third appeal had been rejected last month, the judge's response curt and final. No new evidence warrants consideration. 300 miles away, in a federal penitentiary, Thomas Steele occupied a 6x8 cell. His securities fraud charges had earned him additional time beyond the foundation embezzlement sentence. The former financial mastermind now sorted library books, his attempts to educate fellow inmates on investment strategies earning him nothing but contempt. Their separate incarceration had been deliberate, Jack's influence ensuring they would never communicate again. Their last attempt at contact, through a series of intermediaries 5 years ago, had been intercepted and resulted in loss of privileges for both. They still don't understand, Detective Maxwell remarked during his yearly review of the case with Jack. Now promoted to chief of financial crimes, Maxwell used their story to train new investigators. Thomas tried to file another business proposal last month from prison. Still thinks he can rebuild an empire. Jack's response carried the same controlled power it had a decade ago. Some people never learn the cost of betrayal. The cost had indeed been comprehensive. Every institution where Melanie and Thomas had hidden assets now worked with Jack's organization. Their planned escape routes had become networks for tracking similar financial criminals. Their failure had become a foundation for preventing others from attempting the same schemes. Isabella, now 20, studied psychology at Yale. Her childhood trauma transformed into a drive to help others. Her artwork hung in galleries, the proceeds funding programs for children affected by parental betrayal. Her senior thesis examined the psychological impact of familial fraud, her own experience providing unique insight. "Dad," she'd said during a recent dinner, "I received another letter from Mom." The letter, like all others before it, remained unopened. Isabella had established this boundary herself at 16, after reviewing the case files with her therapist. Ryan, at 23, had graduated from West Point, following his father's military legacy, but forging his own path. His understanding of betrayal and loyalty, shaped by childhood experience, made him an exceptional leader. He'd recently been selected for special operations training, his commanding officers noting his unique combination of strategic thinking and unwavering ethical standards. Amanda Hayes had transformed the Steel Foundation into a powerhouse of corporate accountability. Their programs, focusing on preventing and detecting familial fraud, had helped dozens of families avoid similar fates. She'd married Peter Walsh 3 years ago, their shared experience in exposing Thomas and Melanie's plot having forged a deep bond. "We've identified 17 similar schemes this year alone," Amanda reported during the Foundation's annual review. Each one stopped before they could destroy another family. Peter continued his role as Jack's head of security, though his operation had expanded significantly. His team now consulted internationally, their expertise in detecting insider threats highly sought after. The protocols they developed during Thomas and Melanie's takedown had become industry standards. Claire Bennett had become a leading expert in complex family law, her handling of the Steele case establishing new precedents for dealing with psychological manipulation in custody battles. She taught seminars at top law schools, the security footage from that fateful anniversary night serving as a masterclass in documenting premeditated fraud. "Your case changed how we approach familial conspiracy," she told Jack during a recent consultation. "The thoroughness of your documentation set a new standard for evidence gathering." Dr. Sarah Mitchell, who had guided Ryan and Isabella through their recovery, now ran a specialized practice helping children affected by high-stakes divorce and fraud. Her methods, developed during her work with the Steele children, have been published in leading psychological journals. The Steele investment firm had not merely survived, it had tripled in size. Jack's handling of the crisis had impressed clients and competitors alike. His reputation for protecting what was his, for responding to threats with calculated precision, had become legendary in financial circles. Ms. Diana Rivers, Isabella's former art teacher, had developed a renowned program using art therapy to help children process complex family betrayals. The progression of Isabella's paintings, from manipulation to healing, formed the cornerstone of her methodology. Detective Maxwell's Financial Crimes Unit had expanded significantly, their understanding of complex familial fraud enhanced by the Steele case. They'd prevented multiple similar schemes, each one identified earlier thanks to the patterns established by Thomas and Melanie's failures. In prison, Melanie's attempts to maintain her former image had gradually crumbled. Her commissary account, once supplemented by former socialite friends, now stood empty. Those same friends attended Steele Foundation events, their loyalty shifting to the side of demonstrable integrity. Thomas's mental state had deteriorated more visibly. His prison psychiatrist noted increasing paranoia, his conviction that he could still somehow recover his position in the financial world becoming more delusional with each passing year. His former clients now served as board members for Jack's expanded operations. The law school classes that studied their case had evolved into a comprehensive program on family-based financial fraud. Students analyzed every aspect, from the initial evidence gathering to the final court proceedings. The Steele case had become a benchmark for how to dismantle complex conspiracies. Richard Martinez, the IT director who had uncovered their encrypted communications, now headed a cybersecurity firm specializing in detecting insider threats. The methods he developed while tracking Thomas and Melanie's digital footprint had evolved into sophisticated protection systems used by major corporations. The Steele Children's Trust funds, which Thomas and Melanie had targeted, had grown substantially under the protected structure Jack had established. Both Ryan and Isabella had chosen to reinvest their portions into the Foundation's programs, understanding the value of protecting others from similar predators. Jack himself had remarried 5 years after the divorce. His new wife, Julia, a federal prosecutor who had reviewed the case files before they met. Their relationship, built on a shared understanding of justice and loyalty, provided Ryan and Isabella with a model of healthy family dynamics. The best revenge, Jack had told his children, isn't destruction. It's building something stronger from the attempts to destroy you. The security footage from the anniversary night had been digitally preserved in multiple secure locations, not as a reminder of betrayal, but as proof that justice, properly executed, could be more devastating than mere revenge. The footage had become part of law enforcement training programs nationwide. Melanie's interior design business, once used to launder stolen funds, had been liquidated. The proceeds, managed by the Steele Foundation, funded programs teaching financial literacy and ethical business practices. Her former clients now worked exclusively with firms vetted by Jack's organization. Thomas's network of corrupt psychiatric experts had been exposed and dismantled. Dr. Harris, after serving his reduced sentence for cooperation, now consulted with law enforcement, helping identify similar schemes targeting wealthy families. The offshore accounts Thomas and Melanie had prepared remained frozen, their contents redistributed to the charitable causes they had attempted to steal from. Their planned escape routes had been documented and shared with international authorities, helping prevent similar flight attempts by other financial criminals. Isabella's latest exhibition, titled Reconstruction, featured a powerful piece showing her journey from manipulation to clarity. The central image, a family portrait unlike her childhood works, showed the strength of chosen bonds over broken ones. Jack had purchased it for the Foundation's headquarters. Ryan's military career had benefited from the lessons of hypervigilance learned in childhood. His ability to detect subtle betrayals, to understand complex loyalty dynamics, made him exceptionally effective in intelligence operations. His commanding officers often remarked that he had his father's strategic mind. The Steele Foundation's annual report included a section titled Transparency and Trust, detailing the protections implemented after Thomas's embezzlement attempt. The Foundation had become a model for institutional integrity, its procedures studied and copied by organizations worldwide. Peter and Amanda Walsh's security consulting firm, an offshoot of their work with the Steele organization, specialized in protecting families from internal threats. They'd prevented numerous attempts at similar conspiracies, their methods refined by understanding every aspect of Thomas and Melanie's failure. In their separate cells, the architects of their own destruction faced the consequences of their actions daily. Melanie's prison job in the laundry facility was a far cry from her designer lifestyle. Thomas's role as a library assistant offered him plenty of time to read about the financial world he'd lost. Their attempted destruction of the Steele family had instead catalyzed its evolution into something stronger. The bonds they'd tried to break had been reinforced, the relationships they'd tried to poison had been purified by truth, and the empire they'd tried to steal had grown beyond their comprehension. Jack's office still displayed the frame from that security footage, but it was no longer the most prominent image. That place was held by a recent family photograph. Jack, Julia, Ryan, and Isabella, surrounded by their chosen family. Peter, Amanda, Claire, and all those who had helped transform betrayal into strength. The story of Thomas and Melanie's betrayal had become more than a cautionary tale. It had become a blueprint for justice, a demonstration that the most devastating response to betrayal isn't emotional reaction, but calculated reconstruction. Their attempt to destroy a family had instead created a legacy of protection, helping others defend against those who would sacrifice loyalty for greed. In the end, they had achieved something, though not what they intended. Their betrayal had forged something unbreakable, a family bound not by blood but by choice, an empire strengthened by attempted destruction, and a legacy that would continue protecting others long after they were forgotten in their separate cells. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.